I've been kicked out of my near every bar around. I've been locked up for driving 120 through town. I've been shot at and cut with a knife, messing around with another man's wife. But other than that, we ain't nothing, just good old boys. Threw my boss out the window and got fired for my last job. Hot-wired a city truck and turned it over in the mayor's yard. Beat my brother-in-law half to death. Lost $20 on his football bet. But other than that, we ain't nothing, just good old boys. Good old boys, we're all the same. Ain't no way we'll ever change. Ain't no harm by the things we do, or the trouble that we get into.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Wade and Carter Show. Ash with you here this morning as we get things rolling on a wet and cool Wednesday. Wade and Carter weather brought to you by the great folks at AT Deerland Hayfeed and Ranch Services. Stop on by. About a 70% chance of rain today. Currently 48 degrees. Heading to a high of 58. And looks like the rain is going to be here for much of the morning anyway, and then taper off as the day wears on. And kind of taking a peek into the MLK Day weekend. Looks like not going to be bad through the weekend until Sunday. And then Sunday gets a little chilly, and then Monday looks pretty nasty. And then we might see a chance of snow Monday night into Tuesday morning. Currently, the forecast calling for about a 50-50 chance of about a quarter inch of snow on Tuesday. So let's get ready for that. It is Caldo Wednesday. Boy, that sounds good today, doesn't it? High of 58, steaming bowl of caldo. That'd be a perfect lunch. Judge Posey, first one in. Scott Tomko, Greg Garcia. Good morning, everybody. Bobby Leister checking in. Justin Glass, David Glass, Wendy Hughes Garcia, Lisa Poole, Stephanie Conti, Jordan Glass, Mark Kurtz, Patrick Strauss, Mark Cepeda, good morning. Linda Christ, Scott Snow, Sarah Elkins, Will Vincent, Marvin Mickish, Tammy Keeling, Ricky King, Amanda Bloschke, Daniel Wade White. Just a reminder, Palace Bingo, Wade and Carter night tomorrow night at Palace Bingo. Always a good time. Always have winners. There's Monica Joe. Saw Monica last night. Blue Bonnet Youth Ranch Celebrity Golf Tournament fundraising event kickoff was held last night at Colony Creek, and they're changing things up a little bit this year for those of you that have taken part, and there's a lot of you that have and do. They're moving it from October. It'll be in April this coming year, the last weekend of April. Several changes or the reasons for that. October just got really busy with everything, but I think the big one was it aligns with Child Abuse Month. And the folks at Stitch, who now run the Blue Bonnet Youth Ranch, 17 moms and over 40 kids went through the ranch in the last year up in Yoakum. That's the kind of difference and the make that they are making in the lives of children who come from families that where there are some issues. So great work that they're doing at the Blue Bonnet, and hats off to all of those still involved in raising money for the Blue Bonnet Youth Ranch and carrying on Claude Jacobs' legacy. Ricky King says we're big in Costa Rica this morning. Sherry Jacobs checking in. See if Sherry makes bingo tomorrow. Scott Tomko, Stars are big winners against the Leafs last night. Calgary lost to the Blues 2-1. There's your hockey half minute. Rangers lost in overtime to the Avalanche 3-2. Can't get any of the Stars games. They're all blacked out down here for whatever reason on my ESPN Plus, so I can never watch the Stars. Where do we want to get started this morning? And I got to find what I sent, and I don't know where I sent it. That's the problem. Congratulations to Sheriff A.J. Louderback, sworn in yesterday as House District 30 representative, so he's no longer representative-elect. And saw some pictures of him on the House floor. I think, talked with Brent, I think of the 150 House District representatives that were there, one of them apparently did not announce their presence when they were called. But he looks sharp in his red tie and navy blazer. Sheriff Louderback, not Brent. All right, let me see. Just bear with me for a second as I roll through some of this technology to find what. Well, since this one popped up, let's start here. You may remember a few months ago, I think in September, maybe early October, Sophia Patel, who worked for the Labor Party we're going to get to the Hegseth stuff, Greg. I've got some great audio on that. But head of England's Labor Party, Sophia Patel, tweeted some stuff out that they were wanting to send staffers from Britain's Labor Party to the United States, basically to meddle in our election. They were going there to work for the Democrats. And here was what she sent out way back in, and it might have even been on LinkedIn, of all places. I have nearly 100 Labor Party staff, current and former, going to the U.S. in the next few weeks, heading to North Carolina, Nevada, Pennsylvania, and Virginia. I have 10 spots available for anyone available to head to the battleground state of North Carolina. We will sort your housing. Email me if you're interested. She was the head of operations at the Labor Party in England. She's since deleted her LinkedIn profile and locked her Twitter. And apparently is under investigation in England for trying to meddle in our elections this past fall. She wasn't coming over to help Donald Trump win the election. And the irony of it all is Britain's former Prime Minister, Tony Blair, who was head of the Labor Party at the time, had changed up their laws or at least signed a bill or led the way for a bill to be passed in England that would make it easier to actually extradite her to the United States to face charges of election meddling. And the list of charges that she could face, according to Jim Ferguson on Twitter: election interference, failure to register as a foreign agent, conspiracy to commit an offense against the U.S., cybercrime or unauthorized access, transporting funds for unlawful purposes, interstate travel to aid in unlawful activities. Significant fines and prison time if convicted. Mr. Ferguson goes on to say that Patel is now terrified that she'll actually be extradited to the United States and have to face these charges. But all we hear about is Jack Smith and all that Donald Trump did to try to illegally thwart the transfer of peace on January 6, 2020. The report did say that they couldn't really find any link to him inciting the violence. Keeping in mind, Jack Smith was just recently ruled to be an unconstitutional appointment to that prosecutor position. So regardless of what he found, I would think that none of it would be admissible. And that's probably why Jack Smith just decided to let go of it all. And I was listening to an interview with a gentleman. I can't remember who he is. His dad was a former assistant attorney general under Ronald Reagan. He's worked in, I think he worked in, I don't know if he worked in Trump's first administration or not in the AG's office, but basically there's a lot of talk that the conviction against Trump could end up getting overthrown and or overturned on appeal, and that'll be the end of it. That would throw out the felony conviction. I do remember he also said that in his 40 years of being involved in federal prosecutions, this is the first time he's ever heard of an unconditional discharge. No conditions. A lot of times you know, and he's not even banned from voting in future elections. But that was the interesting thing is none of the conditions. I mean, you know, and this isn't one of them in this, but it's interesting that, you know, conditions sometimes are, you know, you have to give up your passport, or you do this, and this, and then they might discharge you. But no conditions on President Trump. Or at that time, I guess, President-elect Trump. There's Ryan Hopping checking in, Stephanie Conti, Linda Christ. Let's see who else is checking in. There's Sheriff Louderback. Congratulations, sir. Now, I was going to say, I don't know which is harder work, getting elected or having to work in Austin now to get the bills passed in such a short time and making all these decisions that'll last for the next 2 years. Kendra Douglas, good morning. So I mean, all of this talk about election interference and election fraud and trying to overturn an election by Donald Trump, and yet we continue to see blatant examples of the lawfare that is played out against Trump and against the Republican Party. And half this country refuses to see any of it. England's Labour Party, basically their version of the Democrat Party, organized over 100 workers to come to this country to work on behalf of Joe Biden or Kamala Harris's election, Barack Obama's re-election to a fourth term. And they're fine with it. They keep saying there were no evidence of election fraud in 2020. And I don't know how you can be that naive. Because all the things that were put in place All the places that didn't allow poll watchers to go in and observe. Well, you know what? This election they did. This election, they didn't change their laws under the cloak of COVID darkness and allow people to vote by mail en masse like they did in 2020. And what did we see? Election results that not only skewed slightly from what all the polls were predicting, a Kamala Harris victory, but Donald Trump won everything. Popular vote, electoral votes. Republicans took the House and the Senate. They've got work to do in the House still. Monica Joe says it was all just a major waste of time and money. Absolutely. Talking about the investigation into Trump and all of that. And now he's got Canadians and the Danish all ticked off and worried that they're going to lose their sovereignty. So what did he do yesterday? He announced that he's going to form the Department of External Revenue, the External Revenue Service. And they'll be responsible for the tariffs and see, this is where I struggle. I don't know what, and hopefully it's just moving people from one department to another, and hopefully it's not just a shuffle of those people so he doesn't, or he actually reduces government like he said he was going to do. But unless he does, now you're expanding government, President-elect Trump. And I don't like that. He seemed to not have a problem collecting tariffs the first 4 years. So. Let's take our first break. Veracruz, Caldo Wednesday. Get there early because typically the Caldo is sold out at lunch. I would recommend getting there about 11:45. I've been there for a late lunch, like 12:30, so not even that late, not even pushing 1 o'clock, about half an hour later than normal, and they've been out of Caldo at that point. So if you want Caldo, get there today. And I'd recommend getting there a little bit early. Allen's Wrecker Service, 578-6300. Give Allen's a call. Our go-to tow-to, yours should be as well. They have rigs stationed all throughout the region, towards Austin, Cuero, down towards Corpus Christi. They can get to you pretty much wherever you are in the region. RK Development Group, Daniel Rollins and his gang, they can build anything. If it's a metal building, they're blowing and going right now on commercial projects. Just finished up a big one for Watco, and they're working on that athletic facility that's going up on Kerr Boulevard that I think will house basketball and volleyball courts. So if you want to see what they're doing, just stop by and check it out. And while you're there, go by the VCS companies and the only locally owned and authorized retailer, AT&T retailer, right there on Kerr Boulevard as well. Get a new iPhone 16. Some AI-generated emojis that you can't get with your non-16 phone. So if you're into emojis, that's kind of cool. Plus everything else that you need for communication. Birthday presents. It's a great place to shop for some birthday gifts. Went Services for all your electrical needs, backup generators, Producer boy Cody's eyes lit up when I said the VCS companies. He was like, "Oh wow." Apple 16 or the iPhone 16 got him stirring over there in the corner. He's got the old wind up iPhone, he says. Ricky King says, I just hope they get something done. Yeah, me too. Tom Price, good morning. All right, let me see if I can find what I wanted. Oh, this might be the way to jump into the discussion on the California wildfires. We're going to get to Pete Hegseth. Don't you worry, but I thought I was going there first, but this is what I opened up. So let's listen to Kamala Harris here.
And so it's critically important that to the extent you can find anything that gives you an ability to be patient in this extremely dangerous and unprecedented crisis, that you do. And so it's critically important that to the extent you can find anything that gives you an ability to be patient in this extremely dangerous and unprecedented crisis, that you do.
She's telling the California people that they need to be patient. That's all she's got to offer the people of California at this point. Be patient. Could there be a bigger clown show out of Washington, D.C. than the way these two are walking out of the White House? Telling J.D. Vance and his wife that she's not going to give up the vice presidential residence a day early so they can get in there before the inauguration. Remember all the things they accused Donald Trump of doing back in 2020? He's not going to leave the White House. I don't know. Left it in good order. Didn't take the China with them. So have you been impacted by the wildfire? Oh, and what did President Trump say? Every victim of the wildfire is going to get $770 or something like that from the federal government. Meanwhile, let's just go give Ukraine another $500 million. Torn Bale says, thank God we won't have to endure that for the next 4 years. Absolutely. There's Jarrett McCrugan checking in. I wonder if Jarrett's worried about the U.S. taking over Canada yet. But I'm gonna read something to you that, or at least parts of it. Came across a blog by a gentleman named Cliff Mass. He's an atmospheric scientist. He does weekly weather forecasts on a podcast. He's got a website, cliffmass.com. And he's followed this. But he's got some really neat stuff. He's on Facebook as well. You might recall, I think it was 7 years ago, we had a very similar fire in LA, and apparently they've learned nothing. 10 years ago, they set aside money under Governor Brown to provide for water reservoirs, and after that, But Cliff Mass did some really interesting things. He had a blog yesterday titled "Why the LA Wildfires Have Little to Do with Drought or Climate Change." And I won't read the whole thing. It's not a long read if you want to go read it. Like I said, he's on Facebook, or you can go to cliffmass, MASS.com, cliffmass.blogspot.com. But he says the claims that are being made by the media can easily be shown to be false. Drought had little impact on the LA fires. Climate change had little impact on the fires. And he shows an ABC News headline, "This is how climate change contributed to the California wildfires." And he says, let me provide the facts below. And he says the fuels for the fire were the vegetation in the area. Range vegetation and grasses. Particularly where the Pacific Palisades fire started. So it may not even been forest management, might have been better rangeland management. But what he says is interesting, that the type of fuels that where this fire started dry out in about 1 to 10 hours anyway, depending on the conditions. And it's a relatively low humidity area. And he goes through and he says, and he outlines several scenarios of rainfall that could have fallen, and with the type of drying time they have there, these fires could have started regardless. But he says the one thing that nobody wants to talk about, and I brought this up a few years ago when my brother's house burned, and he says, and he bolds it, the homes themselves supplied the fuels. Once the wildfires got to the homes, or the burning embers reached those homes, the homes themselves supplied the fuels. And he points out the obvious. Homes have little to do with the weather conditions and their flammability. He cites poor construction, highly flammable roofing materials, and he also points out other things that the media has been lying. He says there is no trend of less precipitation in Southern California. In fact, his data shows it's on a slight uptick since the late 1940s. And he debunks climate change and the Santa Ana winds, because he says all the models under climate change show that the Santa Ana winds would actually be getting less strong under climate change or global warming. And he explains why. He says that the warming of the globe would actually reduce the strength and intensity and the frequency of those Santa Ana winds because of the temperature and the pressure difference related by it. And he says there's very strong video and photographic evidence that the LA Eaton fire was due to faulty power lines. And there's a picture of the transmission line in flames. And apparently a lot of fingers being pointed at the power companies there, because they did nothing to de-energize those transmission lines, knowing the forecast was coming for strong winds. Knowing that they've been held responsible for wildfires in California in the past because their equipment has not held up to the strong winds. Oh, and that guy they caught the other day trying to light the fire with a blowtorch and whatever else he had with him, illegal immigrant. Under the bill passed by the House, he would be deported. And rightfully so. Jared McCrugan asks if BlackRock's buying up all the land yet. I don't know if they are yet. They bought up a lot of it, I think, in Lahaina after those fires. Certainly makes you wonder, doesn't it? There's no. Monica Joseph, between wildfires and mudslides, Californians need to change their ways. Well, I always find it interesting when they say that, oh, these fires are encroaching on where people live. No, the people are living where they're encroaching on where the fires and the mudslides happen. The irony of the conservation efforts in California is not lost on me, because they have no problem building roads and houses into areas that disturb ecosystems, push wildlife out of their native habitat. But boy, you want to build some reservoirs or start diverting water so that the people actually can live. Oh, we can't do that. There's a smelt that might be affected. And then finding out that I think where one of the fires started, they were actually working on redoing the power lines, but environmentalists got involved because there's an endangered bush that was going to be uprooted as a result of the work of the power companies. Well, those bushes have now all burned. So I guess their efforts didn't matter. And I'm not some, I don't want to see the extinction of species, but species have been going extinct since the dawn of time. Before we were on this earth, species went extinct. That's why we find fossils of dinosaurs. Nothing humans did led to their extinction. Tammy, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I don't know if we need a new reservoir in this area. Hardly have enough water in this area by the looks of things. Lake Texana used to be always full up on 59. Now you can see all the driftwood and everything else that's underneath there. They're hoarding it above us, it seems. I think there's only one true natural lake in Texas. Every other lake is man-made, from what I've heard. Which kind of makes sense. You don't have rivers and mountains and all the geology that's required for lakes. It's pretty flat here. So you don't have the deep valleys and erosion needed. Amanda King says, I heard those who are going to help with the fires have to go to Sacramento to pass emissions testing. Now, that was the Oregon sent a bunch of fire trucks down into California, and they wouldn't let them get past Sacramento without going through their emissions testing. This is how idiotic California is. That even in times of a crisis like this, and Governor Newsom will blame everybody else, but won't look at the laws that he's enacted, supported, continue to pass. This is what they're doing. And what are they saying? That some of the power in California was needed for some of the data centers that they're doing? I mean, is that just what they're calling these crypto mines? Seriously. So that they don't get neighbors mad at them, they just call them a data center instead of a crypto mine? Because Oracle and Amazon and companies like that have had the cloud forever, and they haven't, I mean, they've used up quite a bit of electric capacity in some states. Like I heard Washington State, like Amazon and their cloud computing centers up there account for about 40% of the grid capacity being used, or grid power being used, but still. Why aren't we outsourcing these things to India instead of the call centers? We're probably bringing over the people to work on H-1B visas anyway in these things, since we don't have enough workers to do it. Folks, if you're looking for a new or pre-owned vehicle, get to Atzenhofer. Go see Tommy Taylor. He sits right there in the middle of it all, keeping an eye on his empire, but he's willing to talk to you and work a deal with you if you go talk to him. And if you're not quite ready to pull the trigger, but you're looking at what you want, you can do so at atzenhofer.com. Great website. Always kept up to date. Nothing more frustrating, and I will admit car dealers have gotten better at this, but there are still some that just don't update their inventory online as often as they need to. And maybe some of them do it by design, so they get you there and then, oh, no, that car's gone, but let me show you this one. Car's been gone for 3 weeks, but on at Atzenhofer, they keep their inventory online up to date. And they've got a lot of trucks and SUVs right now, so if you're looking for a deal, you need something for the upcoming soccer season, you don't want to drive a minivan anymore, get over there and check out the Tahoes and Suburbans. White Trash Services, for all your demolition and site service needs, White Trash has you covered, not just weekly trash collection in Victoria and all the contiguous counties, but they can clear your property, they can haul it all away. We watched them do that right next door when they were tearing up this parking lot. White Trash got the contract to not only tear up the concrete, but haul it all off. And they did a great job, and they were done in record time, in my opinion. They got it done quickly. Because when you kind of bid things by the job, you make more money if you get it done quickly. So give White Trash a call. 550-1826. Have a trash-tastic day. Chesney Furniture Company. Go see Bobby Leon downtown. Right there on Juan Lynn. Across from City Hall. It's like stepping back in time when you walk through the doors, kind of an Art Deco look. But all the furniture is modern, up to date. Although there's some Art Deco stuff that's kind of coming back. Some of that postmodern stuff from the 50s and 60s. Way more comfortable than any of that stuff that was in Grandma's living room. A lot more durable, stain resistant, pent resistant covering, so you don't have to put the plastic on it anymore, or a sheet, or whatever. I can't even imagine how sticking to that would be down here back in the 60s when not everybody had air conditioning, or the 70s. It was bad enough when my grandma's in Calgary when you had about 3 days of hot weather. Talked about Palace Bingo and Wade and Carter Bingo night tomorrow night. Brent's up in Paris, and thoughts and prayers with his friend's family who passed away at a relatively young age of, I think, 62 years old. Cancer got him. But Brent may not be back in time for bingo, so come on out. Keep me company. I'll be there. Should be a lot of fun. There's Katina Arterberry checking in. Jared McCrugan says the left's ridiculous hypocrisy. Let's test fire trucks for emissions as fires rage, giving off huge emissions. Exactly. Desalination plants along the east and west coast could help, according to Scott Tomko. Yeah, there's been talks I remember under Rick Perry's governorship of building a plant off the coast in the Gulf of Mexico. Somewhere in this region, actually. Mexico apparently is doing it. You want to talk about a country that really needs it. Mexico City is, their water quality sucks anyway. But I was reading a report on the weekend that there's days where Mexico City only has about 20% of water available to people. And because of the drought they're facing, and they started pumping from the aquifer underneath Mexico City. Those dang Aztecs, if they would have only known not to build on the aquifer. HR says they are in the process of building one in Corpus Christi. There you go. Are they just going to use it for bottled water, or will it actually be something that will be pumped to people's homes? And is the science settled that, yeah, we should be drinking this stuff? All right, let's see. Where are we going here? I said a bunch of stuff, but I didn't label it all, so I'm kind of going through this as we go here. Lots of debate after the Pete Hegseth hearings yesterday about women in combat, and they tried to threaten him, and I can't remember the senator's name, trying to say that his own mom was testifying against him. Come on, really? But I do like what Oklahoma Senator Mark Wayne Mullen had to say in response to the line of questioning towards Pete Hegseth. Trying to bring up things from when he was in his 20s and such, but let's listen to what Senator Mark Wayne, had to say in response.
The senator from Virginia starts bringing up the fact that what if you showed up drunk to your job? How many senators have showed up drunk to vote at night? Have any of you guys asked them to step down and resign from their job? And don't tell me you haven't seen it, because I know you have. And then how many senators do you know have got a divorce before cheating on their wives? Did you ask them to step down? No. But it's for show. You guys make sure you make a big show and point out the hypocrisy because a man's made a mistake. And you want to sit there and say that he's not qualified? Give me a joke. It is so ridiculous that you guys hold yourself as this higher standard and you forget you got a big plank in your eye. We've all made mistakes. I've made mistakes. And Jennifer, thank you for loving him through that mistake. Because the only reason why I'm here and not in prison is because my wife loved me too.
There you go. Senator Mark Wayne Mullen calling out Democrats and other senators, not by name. Boy, that would have made it interesting, wouldn't it have? We would have called out the senators that were actually drunk on the floor while voting. But we've all read the stories, heard the stories. They go to dinner, they have a couple of martinis, and they get called back into Senate to vote. But I thought Hegseth did pretty well yesterday. I listened to parts of it at lunch when I was driving to and from work, and a lot of grandstanding on both sides. When they get their 3 minutes to ask a question, they take all three of it. They don't just ask the question. They've got to set it up with a preamble. You want these hearings to go on and actually get something accomplished. This thing's going to drag on. I have no doubt the Republicans are going to vote for him to be confirmed, and it's just all for show. But why aren't we just asking the questions? instead of having to give 2.5 minutes of garbage word salad to frame the question and finally get to the question. Because most of the questions are actually pretty good questions. But they lose a lot of people on C-SPAN when they go through all their gobbledygook before they answer the question. Now, some of it's all right. But that senator from Hawaii, holy crow. She might have been drunk yesterday on the floor asking the questions. She's hard to understand. And if she's a product of Hawaii's education system, boy, they got some work to do. Peter McNally, it's a bigger deal than comparing a few drunk senators. Is it really, though? Again, it's selective prosecution. Well, if you were drinking on the job as a Fox News reporter, then you can't be the Secretary of Defense. Then the standard should be the same. Then all those senators who went there and voted drunk, Democrats kept electing Teddy Kennedy. There might not have been a bigger drunk in Washington, D.C. history. I mean, there's a lot of folks. If you're probably breaking a lot of company policies when you have one beer at lunch and then go back to the office. Or sneak away to a reception at 4:00 and you're still on the clock till 5, but you have a drink. You're probably violating your company's policy about drinking on the job. Look at your HR manual. 5:01, you'd have been perfectly fine. 4:59, you're still on the clock. Even though you're required to be there for work at some sales reception or something. But I thought Hegseth did well. He held his own. He didn't get mad. He was passionate at times. You like that he's going to do a job that isn't being done, and he's not there to do it as a Republican, and he's not there to do it against Democrats. He's there to do it for all Americans. He spoke out and I think eloquently pointed out why the DEI initiatives in the military are not working. He even joked about it. We all go there and get the same crappy haircuts and start at the same place. So the equality is there right from the get-go. And the outcomes are determined by how you then perform through basic training, through your physical abilities. You know, you've got to go ask Bill Posey. You've got to be quite the physical specimen to get through Navy SEAL school. Imagine the outrage if we just started throwing people into Navy SEAL training just because. Oh, it's all about equity. And then they drown. Or they almost drown. Then what? Or do we lower the standards of our SEALs? So they can no longer do the things that they've needed to do over time to keep this country safe and to eliminate our enemies abroad. Those are the standards that need to be kept up. But you're trying to go back and prosecute a guy or persecute a guy for something he did 10, 15 years ago at Fox News. Where were you holding Don Lemon to account a few years ago when he was absolutely trashed on New Year's Eve, him and Anderson Cooper? Hold the news channels to account then for putting drunks on the air. Kathleen Leininger says, compromise the proven effectiveness of the SEALs? I think not. Absolutely. That's exactly what he was pointing out yesterday. He's all for equality. It's the equity thing he doesn't believe in. And I agree with him. Because when you have equity, you have predetermined outcomes. I don't know that any of them will be as contentious as this one. There'll be some grandstanding. Christine, they might go after Kristi Noem just because they don't like her. Jared McCurgan says the advantage of doing a morning show, drunk risks are less. Yeah, but the hangover risks are a lot higher. Not at this age, but boy, the hangover risks were a lot higher when younger. Trust me. There's some epic stories of some well-known broadcasters who used to sleep on the sofas in the visiting lounges when they would get to their station somewhere. What qualifications does Pete Hegseth not have, Tammy, that you think he needs to have? To be Secretary of Defense? Donald Rumsfeld was Secretary of Defense. He never served anywhere. What, he was a major? He didn't rank as admiral? Didn't rank as a general? So he shouldn't be Secretary of Defense? Our current Secretary of Defense, Lloyd Austin, graduate of the U.S. Military Academy at West Point, 41 years in uniform, retired as a 4-star Army general, 3 years commander of U.S. Central Command. And I'll be honest, I don't think he's been a bad one, but I don't think he's been anything exceptional either. James Mattis left in a huff when he didn't get his way and Donald Trump didn't agree to everything that he wanted to do around the world. Oh, he was born in Pullman, Washington. Didn't go to Washington State, though. So, I don't know. It's an interesting one. Let's see who else. Just kind of looking through these real quick, see who. Ashton Carter, Secretary of Defense under Obama. Career politician. Never served anywhere. Graduated from MIT and then went into work for the Office of the Secretary of Defense. Lots of academic positions. No active duty service anywhere in his bio. Well, Donald Rumsfeld was a former Navy pilot. Served 3 years in the Navy as an aviator and a flight instructor. That was it. Wow. Too much on Casper Weinberger. That's a big bio. Robert McNamara, probably the worst one of the bunch. Got us into Vietnam. No active duty service anywhere. Worked at Ford. Was the president of Ford when I think he became Secretary of Defense under Kennedy. Lots of his decisions to scrap bomber and fighter plane contracts and other defense system contracts. So there you go. I'm curious as to what qualifications Pete Hegseth doesn't have. Management, budget, conduct, becoming, etc. If Hegseth is qualified, so are tens of thousands of guardsmen and women. Hint, they aren't either. So now it's whataboutism. I see what you're doing there. But yeah, I don't think it'll be too contentious, the rest of them. This one will be interesting. A lot of talk to Cowboys. We'll get real quick. FSB Cowboys report. Shedeur Sanders probably won't last until the Cowboys pick at 12th unless they trade up. And Daddy's coaching the Cowboys. But I don't know that he'll make a difference. I've said on this show before, lots of coaches none may be more respected in the NFL than Mike McCarthy around the league, and he couldn't get it done in Dallas. And I think the only one that might be able to stand up to Jerry Jones is Deion Sanders, to be honest. I don't think he'll put up with his BS and maybe call him out for it. Joni Ernst, the senator from Iowa, I think. I don't think she was a Pete Hegseth fan, but now she says she will vote for Pete Hegseth for defense secretary. So there you go. He's flipping skeptics all around the Senate. I'm not flipping any skeptics here, but I'm going to have to call it quits because we're flipping to the top of the hour. So appreciate y'all joining us. We'll continue this discussion tomorrow. Everybody have a good day, and we'll see y'all tomorrow. Bye, folks.
I've been locked up for driving 120.